supraclavicular fossa with internal mammary nodes, how to contour. She tried to cover the differences by and large. So today, basically, we'll be dealing with the second part, that is comparison of nodal target volume. Mind it, primarily it is a nodal target volume definitions, and this comes from the Tron group, in which basically the differences of the RTOG and estro has been dealt, and this paper has been recently published, and that was the reason that we wanted to take this paper as a journal club. But before, we thought that directly if we take this paper to present at a journal club, it might not be right, will not be able to do the justice. That's the reason we took into two parts. Yesterday we dealt with the basically the contouring guidelines and the differences, and the minor intricacies involved with these two particular guidelines. And today Indra will take us to this Tron group study, which has been just recently published. So over to Dr. Indra.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So good afternoon, everyone. Today we will be dealing with the comparison in the nodal target volumes between comparison between the RTOG and ESTRO guidelines. And the Tron group has given us a practical review how these comparisons we should implement in our day-to-day practice. So this is a paper published in recently published in April 2020. This is a Paris-based study. Here they have compared the RTOG and ESTRO guidelines, and they have taken into consideration of the patterns of relapse, and then they have given us the recommendation for their practical implementation in our daily practice. So before directly going into the Tron study, I would first like to discuss the indications of the lymph node irradiation. Coming to the supraclav, the indications would be a clinically N2, N3 disease, or more than 4 lymph nodes positive after axillary dissection, and 1 to 3, even the 1 to 3 lymph nodes with a very high risk features, and when the sentinel lymph node biopsy is positive with no dissection done, and even the high risk patients with where axillary dissection is not done. And coming to the axillary lymph node irradiation indications, it is the node positive with extracapsular extension and the sentinel lymph node with no dissection done, and when there is an inadequately axillary dissection is done, and when there is a high risk features with no dissection. Coming to the internal mammary node indications, here most of the practitioners don't wish to irradiate this volume, because irradiation of the internal mammary nodes is often associated with the increased dose to our lung and the heart. So here the IMN is often, it is individualized, and we should only consider when the patient has an positive axillary lymph nodes, and whether it's central or the medial lesion with a very high risk features, or in the stage 3 breast cancer, or when there is a sentinel lymph node on the internal mammary chain, or even we can consider in the sentinel lymph node positive lymph node on sentinel mapping in axilla with its drainage to the internal mammary node. So before moving ahead directly into the study, I would just like to go into the background of this nodal irradiation. So the landmark trials like MA20 ERTC trials and ECOSAT Z0011 trials, which have established the role of nodal irradiation in radiotherapy, they have basically used a 2D planning. But when we have retrospectively viewed their radiation plans, most majority of them have only used the tangential fields. Only 15% of the patients they have given their direct they have given the regional nodal irradiation. So but they have but from these landmarks trials they have shown an excellent outcome. So there might be an incidental irradiation of the lower axilla from the tangential fields, which is actually taking care of the even the axillary nodes. So, but if we want to implement this technique of the 2D planning into the 3D in the 3D era, it is not going to work much, because the patients, because of the difference in the patient's anatomy and the difference in the positioning of the patient, and with the use of multi-leaf collimator, it is going to be difficult. So, the contouring of the every regional regional node is necessary in this 3D era for a better optimization of the nodal target volume. So, from the yesterday's class, we have discussed that the target volume delineation is often a critical and the weakest part in the radiation planning. So, yesterday we have seen the RTOG and ESTRO guidelines. We have discussed the borders. So, all the anatomical borders of both RTOG and ESTRO, they are historically based on the 2D conventional borders. They both the guidelines, they didn't take into consideration the patterns of failure. So this drone study, in this drone study, first we will compare the ESTRO and RTOG differences in the guidelines. Then we will look into the patterns of loco-regional relapse, and then we will go ahead how we can implement both of these parameters in our day-to-day practice. As we have already dealt with the RTOG and ESTRO guidelines in yesterday's class, now I will just briefly discuss only the differences what we have seen in the yesterday's class. Along with it, I would like to discuss even one more contouring guidelines, that is the RADCOM guidelines even. So how this drone study has actually been formulated is that first a literature search was done in the Medline database, and they have selected 18 articles. So all these 18 articles are basically the RTOG atlas and the ESTRO atlas and the mapping of the nodal regions, that is supraclav, IMN, and the axillary lymph nodes. So as I said, now we will also take into consideration of one more guideline, that is RADCOM contouring atlas. So this RADCOM contouring atlas is actually proposed in 2016 only. It is a part of an ongoing RTOG trial only. It is a basically comparison between the proton and the photon IMRT therapy in the breast cancer. So we need not remember again the boundaries of RADCOM atlas. There is a simple trick to remember this RADCOM atlas guideline. So it is basically a combination of RTOG and ESTRO. But the difference is that whichever takes a bigger volume, RTOG RADCOM atlas extends its boundary towards it. By it is taking the bigger volume, I will deal it in the later classes. I mean later slides. So as we first we will deal with the supraclavicular. We will just revise briefly what are the differences along with the RADCOM atlas as well. So as we have discussed earlier, hello. As we have discussed earlier, the cranial border of RTOG is much at higher level compared to the cranial border of ESTRO. Overall, the RTOG had a bigger volume compared to the smaller ESTRO volume. This is the main difference. So what this RADCOM atlas follows, it follows more or less RTOG because it is a bigger volume. We can see this is the RADCOM, yellow one is a RADCOM atlas. So apart from this, they have also given an option to extend the field posterior-laterally. They have extended this posterior-lateral field. However, there is an optional. Why this optional field is very important. Why it is important, I will discuss it when I will discuss the pattern of relapse. Okay. Now coming to the axillary level 1, as we have seen in the yesterday's class, the cranial limit, in short, the ESTRO had a bigger volume and the RTOG has a smaller volume comparatively. So the RADCOM guidelines follow ESTRO over follow the ESTRO guidelines here, and when the posterior border is larger in the RTOG, it follows the RTOG guidelines and takes a larger posterior boundary. Even in the axillary level 2, it is similar. Yesterday we have seen that the RTOG level 2 is a very small volume, whereas the ESTRO it is a bigger volume. So now RADCOM guidelines simply follows the bigger ESTRO guideline. So coming to the level 3 lymph node. So coming to the level 3 lymph node, here we can see the cranial limit of RTOG might be higher than the ESTRO, but the caudal limit is again at the at a higher end. So the volume of the RTOG is bigger, whereas estro, the caudal border is much larger. So what the RADCOM follows, it takes the cranial border according to the RTOG and caudal border according to the estro guidelines. So here one thing I should mention here, this is the retroclavicular retroclavicular station. Here this space is actually neglected by the RTOG. It is included in the estro. However, the RADCOM here, retroclavicular lymph nodes are not addressed in the axillary level 3 in RADCOM, but however, this area is included in our supraclavicular node. So that's why here we can't here this area is not included in the RADCOM. However, it in RADCOM guidelines, this area is included in the level 4, that is supraclav. So coming to the IMN, as we have discussed previously, the RTOG has a smaller volume. It only takes the internal mammary vessels and it doesn't take the 5 mm margin. And even the cranial border is at a much lower level. Whereas in estro, we will take a 5 mm margin from the vessels, and as well as we will try to connect the border with the supraclavicular lymph node. So our cranial border would be higher in the estro level. So what the RADCOM follows is exactly similar to the estro. It takes a bigger volume in the lateromedial, in the mediolateral direction, and even in the cranial border when it is a larger volume in the cranial lead. RADCOM guidelines simply follows the estro. So we have discussed what are the differences in the supraclav, axillary lymph nodes, and the IMN channel. So what are the main differences that we actually are important in our clinical practice? It is that the cranial border of the supraclav, that is, in RTOG, which is higher, which is at a higher level, that is at a cricoid cartilage, whereas in estro we will end it up as at subclavian artery. Again, the posterior lateral portion of the supraclavicular region, which RADCOM guidelines have given it as an optional volume, it is again a major difference. So and again in the IMN group, the RTOG and the RADCOM guidelines have considered the additional margins, which is whereas in RTOG we will limit our delineation only to the internal mammary vessels. So with these differences between the RTOG and estro, with a quick look on the RADCOM guidelines, these are the main differences. So we will now move ahead to the pattern of nodal relapse. So coming to the pattern of nodal relapse, first we will look into the validation of the estro guidelines in early breast cancer treated with breast conservative surgery and with no high risk features. Then we will move ahead with the mapping of the loco-regional recurrences in all the groups. Then we will move ahead with the supraclavicular. We will address individually the supraclavicular, axillary, and IMN, followed by the discussion in terms of their high risk features. So first we will look into the validation of estro guidelines. So this is a paper published by Chang et al. It is a South Korean group. They have their main aim was to validate this is a paper published in the Green Journal. Now their main aim was to validate estro consensus for early breast cancer patients. So they have taken the 5. This is a retrospective study. In the retrospective database, they have taken around 5,000 patients. Among them, they found they found around 250 patients who have relapsed loco-regionally, and among them 48 are the patients who have relapsed only regionally. That means lymph nodal relapse. So now they have tried to look whether RTOG, how much there is a difference between the RTOG CTV and the estro CTV. So their main purpose is to validate the estro CTV in early stage breast cancer. So what they have found is that the recurrence rate outside the estro and inside the RTOG is according to 14%. However, this 14% is a loco-regional. That means it included both the failure at the local, I mean like the breast failure locally and even in the lymph node. So if we look at this picture, In this study, what we want to discuss is that we need to concentrate on this outside estro and within RTOG volume. So if we concentrate on the lymph nodal stations of IMN and axillary nodes first, we cannot see there is no single relapse that is outside estro and within the RTOG. All the relapses which we can see are within the estro. The green ones are the estro and yellow ones are the between estro and RTOG. So around in this paper they have found that around the 93% they are within the estro, and very few relapses are outside RTOG. So there is no single node which is in between both the RTOG and estro. So coming to the supraclav. But however, in the supraclav, because as we know the supraclav is a much bigger volume in RTOG, here lies the difference. So what they have seen is that outside estro and within RTOG is comparatively higher in this supraclavicular nodes. However, we can also see there outside RTOG also there is a comparatively more number of relapses in this group also. Uh, so so basically, this study is meant only for the early stage tumors. As we have discussed earlier, our estro is able to include 93% of the axilla and the IMN lymph nodes. But whereas in the supraclav, it failed to include 3.6%. I mean, like, roughly about 4%, which is acceptably low. I mean, like acceptably low at least for the early stage disease. So again, they have tried to analyze where these 4% patients have by the high risk features in this 4% of the early stage disease. And then they have found that the younger age group, that is less than 45 years, and the triple negative tumors are found to have the high risk features, that is which might fail um, about the
Okay,
ESTO-CTV.
Indira, I'm sorry to
Yes, sir.
interrupt.
Yes, sir.
The last slide you explained nicely, but it was a bit fast. Can you please repeat whatever you explained and summarize?
Yes, sir,
The
sure.
slide is very important. Seems very important slide, and
Yes, sir.
it's
Yes, sir.
important to understand.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. So these are the relapses originally. So locally, we are not discussing it because our study would be mainly on the regional lymph nodes. So first we will take this first case. Here we will take the IMN, that is internal mammary, and the axillary lymph nodes. So as we have dealt in the previous slides, the volume in the axillary and the axillary and the IMN is larger in the estro, and it is smaller in the RTOG. So by large we can expect that estro will nicely cover all the relapses comparatively with the RTOG. But whereas in the supraclav, here we can see that RTOG had a bigger volume and the estro had a smaller volume. Here we can see the estro had a smaller volume. So we can expect that RTO, there will be a recurrences outside estro volume. So here, apart from outside estro and within RTOG, there are also the recurrences which are not addressed by even RTOG. I mean, like these are above and posterior laterally. This thing I will explain in detail when I will go to the supraclavicular region. So if we concentrate on the IMN and axillary nodes, there is no single lymph node which is outside estro volume and within RTOG volume. There are only very few relapses which have occurred outside RTOG volume. Uh, Sir, is it clear? Should I repeat it again?
No, it's clear. So you are saying that since the RTOG is by and large a bigger volume as compared to estro, so they have seen the relapses that are within estro, relapses that are outside estro but within RTOG, and some relapses that are outside RTOG itself. So except so in IMN and axillary lymph node outside RTOG, so outside the bigger volume, relapses are very less.
Yes, sir.
But in case of supraclav, there are some relapses which are even outside the RTOG, which
Yes,
cannot
sir.
be addressed even by the bigger RTOG volume.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, continue, Dr. Indira. It was
Yes.
clear.
So moving, I mean, like as we have discussed, I have addressed the what are the risk factors which associated with the eSTO CTV, where the eSTO CTV has missed is the younger age group and the triple negative tumors. So I mean, like now this paper they have what they have said is that this eSTO CTV is able to successfully contain around in 96% of the early stage breast cancer, early stage breast cancer, which are treated with the breast conservative surgery. So they have validated that that estro CTV is applicable for early stage breast cancer treated with breast conservative surgery with no high risk features. I mean, like high risk features here include the younger age group and triple negative. That means he only this has failed. So if we don't take these risk factors, we can apply this estro CTV in this early breast cancer. So moving ahead with the mapping study. So this mapping study is published in 2018 by Memorial Sloan Cancer Center in the New York. This is the largest mapping study. Here they have taken around 13,000 patients and they have observed, and among them there are around 150 patients who had relapsed loco-regionally. So uh, they have observed for what are the risk factors which uh, might be present in this loco-regional failure. So they have seen that younger age group, grade 3 tumor, and the lymphovascular invasion, and hormone negative, and extracapsular extension. And interestingly, lymph node negative is found to be at higher risk compared to the lymph node 1 to 3 lymph node positive. Maybe because lymph node 1 to 3 lymph nodes are treated more aggressively compared to the lymph node negative. So this might be a possible reason actually. So no, so now they have again divided this loco-regional relapse into the different regions. They have found that axilla has failed, relapses in axilla were around 42%, relapses in internal mammary nodes is around 32%, and relapses in the supraclav is around 26%. So again, they have analyzed and they tried to look for the two contouring guidelines, that is RTOG and ESTRO. So when they tried to look for the RTOG, RTOG is able to include about around 82% of these lymph node stations. But whereas ESTRO is able to include only 77% of this nodal relapse. So again, in the conclusion, if we will divide again on the based on the nodal stations, as we know, the RTOG failed bit higher in the axilla and IMN as as it is expected because it has a smaller volume compared to the estro. But in the supraclav, RTOG has failed comparative less when compared to the estro. Estro it has failed around 80%. But however, if we look at the supraclavicular region, it is more or less 50% of the relapses we didn't take into consideration. Even at least 50% we have not taken into consideration with both of these guidelines. So this should be taken into point. I will discuss in detail in coming slides. So moving ahead with the pattern of relapse in the supraclavicular region. These are two studies by Brown et al. And the Jing et al. They both of them they tried to observe the nodal relapse patterns in the supraclavicular region, and they wanted to justify whether the RTOG volume has included these relapse patterns. So in both of these studies, in both the RTOG and both in Brown et al. And the Jeng et al., around RTOG is able to include at least 60% in both of these regions. And the most common site of the nodal relapse which are outside RTOG are more common at the level of cricoid and thyroid cartilage and the posterior lateral supraclavicular fossa. Uh, Even in this paper, it is a similar thing. So if we again divide the supraclavicular region divide it into four parts, it is a it will be the medial supraclavicular volume. Here we can see around the 48% of the recurrences occurs here. So it is basically the posterior. It is basically posterior towards sternocleidomastoid muscle. So our RTOG volume, it roughly corresponds to this medial supraclavicular volume. That means in whatever guidelines we are only covering only till the medial supraclavicular volume. Forget about the histro; it will be even much lesser. So RTOG, even though it is a bigger volume, it is only taking till here. It is not addressing the remaining 50% of the relapse patterns. So what are the remaining relapse patterns? The lateral supraclavicular and the posterior, which they both comprise about 50% of these recurrences. The lateral one is a lateral to the fat space, that is lateral to the sternocleidomastoid muscle, whereas the posterior SCV, it is the fat space lateral to the transverse process. So the high risk features, what they have seen in this posterior supraclavicular volume is that the grade 3 tumor, and when there is a lymphovascular invasion and extra capsular extension, but found to be the high risk features for this posterior supraclavicular relapse. So then coming to the superior supraclavicular volume, though the recurrence pattern is very less in this area, however, we should take into consideration when we have a node which is at a higher level. I mean, like that is more cranially near the cricoid cartilage and all. We should take this superior clavicular volume into consideration. Uh, so, uh, um, so what is this posterior lateral volume, posterior lateral volume that we have discussed? It is basically a posterior triangle in the neck. So this posterior lateral region is a potential high risk of recurrence, especially in the patients with a locally advanced disease. And when it comes to the superior SCV, what they have seen is that the geographical miss is around 5%. 5% of the geographical miss is even above the cricoid cartilage. That is even cranial to the RTOG CTV. So superior supraclavicular recurrences suggest that there is an insufficient coverage in both the RTOG and osteoatlases. So now they have again summed up and they have come with the what are the risk factors which we should deal, and they have analyzed the risk factors and they have given the advisors what we should really follow accordingly. So if we analyze the risk factors here, when the patient is an younger age and the triple negative status, there are high chances of going the outside estro. So we can easily tackle this problem by giving an RTOG uh, while contouring it with the RTOG guidelines. So, but when there is a grade 3 tumor, or when there is an lymphovascular invasion, or when there are large number of nodes in the supraclav, or when there is a node in the level 3, there are more chances of relapse in this posterior lateral region. So what should we do? Both these guidelines, both the ISTRO and RTOG didn't give they didn't include this volume, so we don't know what we should do with this in this area. And again, in the when we have a pathological or clinical node at the higher level in the supraclav, again there are chances with the again there are chances of recurrence superior to the supraclavicular volume. So again in this area we don't know what to follow. So this ends up the discussion of the supraclav. Now we will just quickly move with the axilla and the internal mammary nodes. So coming to the axilla, here this is a study by Gentle et al. What they have proposed is that RTOG guidelines, as we know that RTOG has a smaller volume compared to the estro in axillary lymph nodes. So they have suggested that RTOG volume is insufficient to cover this axillary disease, especially in the patients who have received the neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or when there is an incomplete axillary dissection, or when we are going to treat our patients with IMRT technique or even the proton beam therapy. So they have concluded that the RTOG guidelines are insufficient for the axillary coverage. So whenever there is a positive lymph node, always it favors the ESTRO guidelines over the RTOG, because it has a better coverage in the superior lateral portion and the superior lateral portion. So moving ahead with the internal mammary nodes. So this is a study published in 2017. This study basically looked upon the recurrences in the internal mammary region. So this region. So I mean, like, more or less everyone is more concerned with the internal mammary recurrence. Why is it? Because internal recurrence in the internal mammary nodes is often associated with the poor overall survival, and it is often associated with the increased distant metastasis. So this study, they tried to so I mean, like, they tried to observe what are the patterns of recurrence, patterns of patterns of relapse in the IMN. So they have taken the incremental increase expansion of the IMN will significantly cover this IMN lymph nodes. So when we can see, when we give 11 mm margin to our internal mammary nodes, around 100% is included. But we know that RTOG doesn't take any expansion to our internal mammary nodes. So when the expansion is 0, we can see that only 50% of the nodes are only covered. That means we are with RTOG IMN, if we follow the RTOG IMN, we are only treating around 50% of the lymph nodes. But as we know that the ESTRO and RADCOM guidelines take the 5 mm margin, if we see this 5 mm, 5 mm corresponds to at least 93% of the coverage. So we have a good coverage in the ESTRO and RADCOM guidelines. And whereas if we follow RTOG, it is only roughly, it is around 50%. Okay. So again, what are the again, when we see the lymph node metastasis, we can see the metastasis are more in the first 3 intercostal spaces. It roughly around 80% are in the first 3 intercostal spaces, but the fourth and the fifth and even above intercostal spaces, they correspond to remaining 20%. Actually, ESTRO takes care of this part, that is above the first intercostal space. But both the ESTRO, RADCOMP and RTOG, they don't take this fourth and fifth intercostal space, which corresponds to this 14%. This 14%. Now, now again in this mapping study, they have analyzed the risk factors, and again they have found that the hormone negative or lymphovascular invasion and grade 3 tumor are associated risk factors. So what they have recommended is that when we are given an internal mammary node irradiation, we can go with the RTOG guidelines. But whenever there is a clinically positive internal mammary node, or when there is high risk features like hormone negative or lymphovascular invasion or grade 3, it is always better to contour it with the ESTRO guidelines, and then again take the margin and extend caudally to fourth and the fifth intercostal space. That means even in this area, in IMN, both the guidelines actually fail. That means because we have to take this extra margin. So by and large, we have seen all the relapse patterns in all the nodal stations. So what we can say is that in majority of the patients, both the ESTRO and RTOG are able to cover. But when we can observe with the loco-regional patterns, especially in locally advanced disease, or when the patients have the very high risk features, RTOG has more adequately I mean, like, RTOG is better able to contour these patterns of relapse in the locally advanced disease. Nevertheless, I mean, like, there are areas of nodal relapse which are not taken into consideration both by RTOG and e-stroke. So, what are those areas which are not taken care? So, we can see in the supraclavicular region, there is a posterior lateral region which is not addressed by both RTOG and e-stroke. And even the superior region of the supraclav, that is cranial to the RTOG, this is also not addressed by both these guidelines. And again, in the IMN, as we have discussed, both the borders ends at the third intercostal space, and again the fourth and the fifth, they have the potential risk of about 15%. This is also not been addressed. So at least for the in the supraclav in the posterior lateral region, we can tackle this problem by contouring it with the Radcom Petlas. As I have mentioned it in the previous slides, we will take an optional margin of this posterior lateral supraclavicular area. So, this posterior lateral region is not addressed by the RTOG and e-stroke. So, as I have said, the Radcom guidelines always takes a bigger volume. Whatever the boundary is larger, it is by and large taking the larger volume. So, why it is taking a bigger volume? So, as we analyze, there is an advantage of scattered radiation to the nearby areas when we give radiation in 2D technique or the 3D CRT. But this advantage of the scattered radiation is decreased when we treat the patient with IMRT or proton therapy due to the rapid dose follow-up. So actually, in order to not to miss any potential area of loco-regional relapse, Radcom guidelines meticulously takes the whatever larger volume it can include. So here we can see that here again the posterior lateral region is addressed. However, we are still left with this area that is superior to the cricoid cartilage. This is it is not addressed either by all the three guidelines. So here, if we can see the Radcom guidelines, the violet one is the Radcom guidelines. So we can see ideally our RTOG border ends up here. But there are recurrences in this area, that is a posterior lateral region. So if we take our contour within Radcom guidelines, we can include these areas of loco-regional relapse. So here we can see this is the posterior lateral. So in overview, if we contour it with Radcom, we are more or less able to take the majority of the recurrence patterns. But if we contour it according to with the RTOG guidelines, we can see there are large number of relapses which are occurring posterior laterally. So this posterior laterally, it is not being addressed when we are treating it with the RTOG. And forget about the e-stroke, which is a very smaller volume. So by the end of this, all the relapse patterns and everything, if we come to the conclusion that we should treat every lymphatic pathway, just we need to hold for one more paper to be discussed. So, this is a paper by Borm et al. Now, this study, what they have seen is that all the landmark trials in the regional nodal irradiation, that is ECOSAC, COSAT 0011, AMROS trial, ERTC, and MA20, they have retrospectively seen their treatment plans, and they tried to observe for this RTOG and e-stroke guidelines. They have observed that none of these treatment plans have provided any full dose coverage to the regional nodes, but still they have showed the benefit of the regional nodal irradiation. So in this paper, they have seen in this landmark trials, they have seen that RTOGs failed in around 14.3%, whereas e-stroke has failed in approximately 20%. So what they have concluded in this study is that inclusion of entire lymphatic system is not necessary to give that oncological benefit to our patients, especially when we treat the patients with the 2D or 3D CRT technique at least. So, but when we try to give it with IMRT and proton therapy, maybe we should take a larger volume, and and when the patient had a risk factors, maybe we should go with it. But otherwise, at least to give that oncological benefit to this patient, by and large, we need not take a larger volumes everywhere. So always there should be balance between the CTV and the organs at the risk to decrease their toxicities. So by analyzing everything like RTOG guidelines, ESTRO and even the RADCOM guidelines, and again taking into consideration of the risk factors and the regional nodal recurrences, the TRON group has given their recommendations. What they have given is that when the patient is when in early stage breast cancer and when the patient is treated with the breast conservative surgery, ESTRO guidelines are most preferred. But whereas in the patients, I mean, like in advanced, locally advanced breast cancer, and whether the patient is when the patient underwent radical mastectomy, or when the patient received the neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or when there is a gross involvement of the supraclav, RTOG remains the guideline of choice. So now I mean, this is the broad division. So, but there are again the high risk features in the early stage, and there are even high risk features in the uh, locally advanced disease. Now they have again come up with the high risk features. So what are the high risk features that they actually looked upon is that high risk features are the triple negative disease, and when there is a poor nodal relapse with the neoadjuvant chemotherapy and younger age, and when we are treating our patients with the IMRT and proton therapy, there is a, because of the risk of the underdosage, we should always try to follow RTOG or RADCOM guidelines. And they have now again analyzed very high risk features. So what are the very high risk features? These are the multiple gross lymph nodes, or when there is a gross supraclavicular node, or when there is an IMN node. So these will be our very high risk features. So the TRON group recommends that we should follow RTOG or RADCOM guidelines in this. So however, we should again take into consideration the relapse patterns which are not met with all the three guidelines. So we should extend so here the posterior lateral region we should include as we have done in the RADCOM guidelines, and even the superior supraclavicular region which is higher than the cricoid also we should try to extend our cranial border even higher than the cricoid cartilage. And into the IMN, because it doesn't take fourth and fifth intercostal space, we should extend our CTV caudally to include this fourth and the fifth intercostal space, because these are the very high risk features. So high risk features. So what this TRON group has given the recommendation. This is what I have said, but they have divided the patients into low regional risk. In low regional risk group, we will only give we will follow ESTRO guidelines. But when there is a high regional risk group, that is a advanced stage, or the patient who underwent mastectomy, or triple negative engage or poorer response to neoadjuvant chemotherapy, we will follow either RTOG or RADCOM guidelines. Very high regional risk, we will follow RTOG or RADCOM guidelines with extra border cranially in the supraclav, and we will include the fourth and fifth intercostal spaces as well. So, however, there are limitations in all the studies we have discussed in the loco-regional pattern. All the studies that the TRON group has viewed. Uh, the thing is that uh, uh, there is a difference in the positioning. The starting treatment planning CT as well as the diagnostic CT, which has documented our recurrence. There is a difference in the position. Especially, it is very important. Um, the arm position, even a slight difference in arm position between the between our planning CT and the diagnostic CT will largely influence the nodal station volumes. And again, all these studies are more or less retrospective, so there might be a selection and the reporting biases as well. And the regional recurrences may be underreported because when there is a local relapse or the distant recurrences, we often fail to report this regional recurrence. So apart from this, the cancer biology also is very important, because the cancer biology when the patient first presents with is comparatively different when the patient comes up with the recurrent and the metastatic disease. So, so in conclusion, I would like to say that any contouring guidelines or even the drone recommendations are only a baseline to guide our radiotherapy planning. But every patient's radiotherapy plan should be individualized accordingly, according with the patient's risk factors and their own comorbidities. Everything should be considered, and it should be individualized. Um, so this ends up the class today. Thank you so much.
Excellent presentation, Dr. Indira. So, just one comment that that I saw. You were saying something about. You're saying something about the recurrences above the inferior border of the cricoid cartilage, and the fact that it is not covered by even RTOG. But
Yes,
if
sir.
we go that high in the neck, that essentially it's level 2 lymph node in the neck, which doesn't come in the it is not a part of the regional nodes
Yes,
if you consider
yes,
if
sir.
you
I mean,
consider
like in one of the papers, like what I have read is that any relapse pattern above this cranial border of the cricoid cartilage, sorry, caudal border of the cricoid cartilage is taken as a systemic failure. But what these guidelines recommend is that we need not take it as a systemic failure at that level, and we can take a margin to it, and we can include these relapses also in our loco-regional failure. But, I'm not sure.
okay, yeah.
Hello. Yeah, Indira, can you
Yes,
hear
yes,
me?
sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear? Can you? Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Indira.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Sir, I can hear.
Okay, Indira, I have a question, and I'll ask you a very simple question. The paper that this drone study paper,
Yes, sir.
exactly what conclusion have we reached from this paper? Means, did we come out to any conclusion? I mean, I'm asking a very, very basic question. Like, after this drone study, where are we now? Where are we?
I mean, like, sir, I mean, like, when, I mean, like, what they wanted to consider is that when we have a high risk features, we should be more liberal uh, with our contouring the borders, sir. I mean, like, we should go ahead and take the more liberal margins, actually.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Indira, that was an excellent presentation. I just
Thank you.
have a comment. In the MSKCC study have showed there is a chart which is saying that in axilla there is 42% failure.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But that is a very high rate of failure. I mean, how many we see in axilla?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you go through the study then and for the whole paper, you will come to know why there is so much of high incidence of axillary failure.
Yes, ma'am.
That
But
is, I think, yeah, I found it's too much.
yes, ma'am. I mean, like here they have very high axillary failure, ma'am.
But one thing you have mentioned, that is when they come up with a recurrence or a METs, then we don't, count those local failure. So whether that adds up to so much of axillary recurrence, that we have to see. Like we don't get so much of axillary failure.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ma'am, may I say something?
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, I think this 42% is essentially like they have taken all failures into consideration. And they said that out of all the failures, 42% occurs in axilla.
Yeah, that's it. We hardly see, after doing a axillary dissection and giving chemotherapy and all, a failure in the axilla is extremely low in our experience, I think, as far as the Indian scenario goes. So I don't know whether in the West there is so much of axillary failure. Anyway, that was a very nice presentation,
Yes.
Indira.
Okay. Okay. So, ma'am, should we end the session, ma'am?
Yeah, I think if nobody has any other question, we can call it
Yes,
a
ma'am. I
day.
don't see any other questions.
Yeah, okay.
No other questions, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Okay,
much, ma'am.
fine,
We'll
thank you.
end the session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So you can do